I spent $20,000 on a family trip to Hawaii. But at the airport my son told me, I forgot to buy your ticket. Just go home. They had planned to leave me behind all along. 3 weeks later when they came back, their eyes widened at the man in a suit standing beside me. Because that man was. This isn't just a story about a forgotten plane ticket. It's about a betrayal so profound, so utterly calculated, it stripped me bare and left me reeling. What started as an act of generosity for my own family turned into a cold, hard lesson about the true cost of trust. The terminal was a whirlwind of excitement. The hum of voices, the scent of coffee, families laughing, all heading to paradise. My rolling suitcase bumped against my leg as we walked towards the Hawaiian Airlines counter. I was practically bouncing. After 3 months of planning, this dream vacation was finally here. But then Simon's voice cut through the noise, sharp and unnervingly quiet. Dad, I have some bad news. My stomach clenched. He wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at the departure board, hands jammed deep into his pockets. I forgot to buy your ticket. Forgot. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Simon, we've been planning this for 3 months. He finally looked at me, a quick, fleeting glance. I know. Work's been crazy, so much to coordinate. So much to coordinate? I'd given him $20,000. $20,000. For everyone, for the whole family. We're grateful, Dad, he muttered, already glancing at his watch, then toward the gates. But the flight's almost ready to board. I didn't wait. This had to be fixable. It had to be. I dragged my suitcase, its wheels catching, pushing forward. Excuse me. I called to the agent, her uniform crisp, her smile professional. I need to check flights to Honolulu today. My name is Lee Willis, but there might be an issue with my booking. She typed, paused, and her smile faltered. I'm not seeing any reservation under that name, sir. Are you sure it was Hawaiian Airlines? My chest tightened. It had to be. My family. I turned to Simon, but he was already several feet away, pacing by security. Let me try a broader search, the agent offered. What dates? Today, right now. My son and his family should have their tickets. She typed again, the screen reflecting in her glasses. I do see a reservation for Simon Willis. Party of 4, departing at 4:15. But no Lee Willis on that booking. The terminal started to tilt. Party of 4. Not 5? That's impossible. Check again. I've checked twice, sir. She offered standby, a flicker of hope. Yes. Anything. But no, completely booked. Convention season. My heart sank. What about tomorrow? First class. I'll pay whatever. Simon was suddenly at my elbow, his hand gripping my arm, pulling me away from the counter. Dad, we need to talk. I shook him off. Not now. We're fixing this. No, we're not. His grip tightened, pulling me further. The agent watched, concerned. Other passengers stared. My suitcase tipped over. What do you mean we're not fixing this? I righted my luggage, my hands shaking. There has to be another airline, another flight. Dad, listen to me. His voice was sharp, a cutting edge I'd never heard before. The vacation is happening today. Right now. My family is already through security. So we find another way for me to get there. No. The word was flat. Final. We don't. The departure board flickered, updating flight times. Gate assignments shifted. Hawaiian Flight 415 showed final boarding call. Impulsing red letters. Simon, you're scaring me. What's going on? He checked his watch again, aggressively this time. What's going on is you need to go home, Dad. We'll manage the vacation somehow. Manage? My voice cracked. I paid for everything. The hotel, the car, the kids' activities. And we appreciate that, but arguing isn't helping anyone. The air conditioning hummed, but I felt hot, dizzy. Nothing made sense. 3 months of planning, $20,000, family dinners discussing snorkeling and sunset dinners, and now he was acting like I was some kind of inconvenience. Just go home, he repeated, already backing towards security. We'll call you from the hotel. That's when I saw it in his eyes. Not panic. Not guilt. Relief. Simon turned and walked towards the gate, leaving me standing there, my suitcase a lonely island in a sea of rushing travelers, watching my son disappear like he'd been planning this moment all along. The Hawaiian Airlines counter suddenly felt like my only anchor. I approached the same agent. Sir, were you able to work things out? Actually, I need you to check something. That reservation for Simon Willis, when was it made? She hesitated, glancing where Simon had vanished. I'm not supposed to share details, but it was booked 6 weeks ago. Party of 4. 2 adults, 2 children. 6 weeks ago. Not 3 months when we first discussed it. Not last week when he claimed he was finalizing everything. 6 weeks ago. He'd already decided I wouldn't be included. Were there any changes to add additional passengers? No, sir. The reservation has remained unchanged. My legs felt weak. I gripped the counter, the metal cool. What about other airlines? Anything to Honolulu today, tomorrow, this week? She checked, her expression growing more sympathetic. I'm afraid it's convention season. United has a waiting list of 47. Alaska is booked solid until next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. The words tasted like ash. The vacation would be half over. There is one option, she offered quietly. Southwest has a red-eye tonight, 2 stops. Gets you in Thursday afternoon. Very expensive without advanced booking. How expensive? $1,800. I reached for my wallet then stopped. In the distance I could see the Hawaiian flight gate. Simon would be there now, probably texting Fern. Problem handled. The problem me had been dealt with. Sir? The agent's voice seemed far away. He knew, I said it more to myself than to her. All along he knew. I'm sorry. I looked at her kind, genuinely concerned face and suddenly felt embarrassed. This wasn't her problem. This was family business, the kind of ugly truth that should stay private. The flight, I said. Is it still boarding? Final call was 10 minutes ago. They're probably closing the doors now. As if summoned, an announcement crackled. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 447 to Honolulu is now closed for boarding. I watched the last stragglers rush down the corridor, children in tow. Families heading to paradise together. My phone buzzed. A text from Simon. Sorry, Dad. We'll call from hotel. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, like I was some burden he'd finally managed to shed. About that Southwest flight, sir? The agent asked gently. Would you like me to hold it? No explanation. No real apology. Just a casual dismissal after taking $20,000 and 3 months of my excitement. No, I said, sliding the phone back into my pocket. No, I don't think so. Are you sure? I can hold it for 15 minutes. I'm sure. Because suddenly standing in that terminal, the smell of coffee and rolling luggage all around me, I realized something. This wasn't about a forgotten ticket. This was about who they thought I was. Who they thought they could treat like a fool. The departure board updated again. Hawaiian Flight 447 departed. Simon and his family were airborne, probably toasting with complimentary beverages, congratulating themselves on a vacation well deserved. I picked up my suitcase handle and walked towards the exit. But I wasn't defeated. Not anymore. Every step away from that gate was a step toward clarity. They'd made a calculation about Lee Willis. They decided I would quietly go home, maybe complain a little, but ultimately accept being discarded. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The automatic doors slid open, and I stepped into the afternoon air, already planning my next move. The taxi line was longer than expected, but I welcomed the wait. It gave me time to think, to let the pieces settle into place like sediment in disturbed water. Where to? The driver asked, a tired-looking man probably dealing with airport traffic all day. Oakland, Montclair District. I settled into the back seat, Simon's pathetic text still glowing on my phone. As we pulled away from SFO, I stared out at the familiar landscape of the Bay Area. Houses dotted the hills where other families were probably sitting down to dinner, sharing their days, making plans, not calculating how to exclude their own father. Rough day? The driver asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. Getting rougher by the minute. I wasn't one for talking to strangers, but something about the anonymity of the taxi made it easier. Ever have your family turn on you? He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Brother, I got ex-wives who've been planning my downfall for years. Family's the ones who know exactly where to stick the knife. The knife. That's exactly what it felt like. Sharp, precise, aimed at something vital. As we drove through Daly City, I replayed conversations from the past few months. March, when I first mentioned doing something special for the grandkids. Simon's immediate enthusiasm. Dad, that's a great idea. Leave everything to me. April, sitting around Fern's dining room table, looking at hotel brochures. Pearl bouncing in her chair. Oh, Lee, this is so generous. Saul nodding along, quieter than usual, but seemingly supportive. But now looking back I could see the signs. Simon's insistence on handling all bookings himself. Fern's suggestion I might be more comfortable in a different hotel, just in case the kids got too noisy. Pearl's comment about how older folks sometimes prefer different activities. They'd been conditioning me to expect separation all along. You know what the worst part is? I said to the driver's reflection. What's that? They thought I'd just take it. Roll over and play dead. You planning to prove them wrong? I watched the Bay Bridge approach, its cables cutting geometric patterns against the afternoon sky. I'm 68 years old. I worked 43 years as an engineer. I raised a son who apparently thinks I'm some kind of fool. But I didn't survive this long by letting people walk over me. The driver chuckled. Now you're talking sense. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Fern. So sorry about the mix-up, Dad. We'll bring you back something nice from Hawaii. Mix-up. Like it was some clerical error instead of a deliberate betrayal. I thought about the $20,000 I transferred to Simon's account 6 weeks ago. Easier to book everything from one source, he'd said. How easily I trusted him. How completely I'd been played. But as we exited onto Highway 24, heading toward my empty house in the hills, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and fresh. But underneath it was something harder, something that had been building pressure like water behind a dam. They wanted to treat me like a doddering old man who could be discarded when convenient. They wanted to take my money and exclude me from my own grandchildren's vacation. Fine. But they were about to discover that this particular old man still had a few moves left. The taxi pulled into my driveway as the sun began to sink behind the Oakland hills. The house looked exactly as I'd left it 3 hours ago. Neat, quiet, ready for a week's absence. But I wasn't the same man who'd locked that front door with excitement and anticipation. $47.50, the driver said. I handed him $60. Keep the change and thanks for the conversation. Whatever you're planning, he said with a grin. I hope they deserve it. As I watched his taillights disappear, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in months. Bruce Harlan, my lawyer. If Simon wanted to play games with $20,000, we could play games. But first I had some research to do. The key turned in my front door with the same familiar click as always, but everything felt different now. I dragged my suitcase across the threshold, its wheels catching on the doormat Martha and I had bought 20 years ago. Home, where I'd planned to be packing for Hawaii tonight, instead of unpacking from nowhere. I changed into my comfortable cardigan and old cotton pants, the kind Simon always said made me look like an old professor. Tonight that felt appropriate. I had studying to do. My office sat exactly as I'd left it this morning. Martha's oak desk by the window, filing cabinets lined against the wall like soldiers at attention. Everything organized, everything in its place. Unlike my family, the vacation folder sat in the second drawer, labeled Hawaii 2025, in my careful handwriting. I pulled it out and spread the contents across the desk's leather surface. 23 documents. Each one another piece of my trust systematically betrayed. Travel agency invoice, $20,000 transferred to Simon's account 6 weeks ago. Hotel confirmation Grand Wailea Ocean View Suites, 7 guests 10 nights. I counted the names. Simon, Fern, Pearl, Saul, Mia, Ethan and Martha Willis. Martha, my wife who'd been dead for 3 years. They'd actually put Martha's name down instead of mine. The reservation my money paid for didn't even include me. My hand shook as I reached for the hotel brochure. Beautiful sunset photos, families playing in crystal clear water, generations gathering around dinner tables. Everything we talked about during those planning sessions. Dad, you'll love the Ocean View Suite, Simon had said. The kids will have such amazing memories, Fern had added. All eyes. I picked up the phone. Not my cell, but the old landline Martha insisted we keep. Something about this moment required the weight of real connection, not wireless convenience. Directory assistance connected me to Grand Wailea Resort. Reservations, this is Co. How may I help you? Her voice carried that practiced Hawaiian warmth they train hospitality workers to perfect. I need to cancel a reservation under the name Willis. Let me pull that up for you. Willis, yes. I show a reservation for 7 guests. Checking in tomorrow. Ocean View Suites, 10 nights. Are you sure you want to cancel? Our resort is beautiful this time of year. I'm completely sure. May I ask why? Perhaps I can offer alternatives. No alternatives. Cancel everything. A pause. I heard her typing, probably trying to process why anyone would cancel such an expensive booking. Mr. Willis, I have to inform you that canceling this close to arrival will result in significant penalties. The total cancellation fee would be $3,200. $3,200. Less than I'd spend on gas money for a year. That's acceptable. Are you certain? This is a very substantial reservation. Perhaps if you spoke with our guest services manager. Cancel it now, please. More typing. The sound of a printer. Official business being conducted. The cancellation is processed. You should receive confirmation via email within the hour. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Actually, yes. When someone arrives tomorrow expecting that reservation, what will you tell them? I would inform them that the reservation was canceled by the primary booking party at 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time on May 15th. Perfect. Simon would know exactly when I'd taken action, and more importantly, he'd know it was deliberate. Thank you, Co. You've been very helpful. I hung up and looked at the scattered papers on my desk. In the corner, a framed photo from last Christmas. Simon, Fern, the kids, Pearl and Saul, all gathered around my tree, opening presents I'd bought, eating dinner I'd paid to cater. All of them smiling at the generous old fool. Well, the generous part was over. Morning light filtered through my bedroom curtains differently than it had in weeks. For the first time since we'd started planning this vacation, I'd slept deeply, dreamlessly, completely. No anxiety about packing. No excitement about seeing Pearl's face when she first glimpsed the ocean. No mental lists of activities the grandkids might enjoy. Just peace. I showered, dressed in fresh clothes, and made my way to the kitchen. The old percolator bubbled cheerfully, filling the house with the same coffee aroma that had greeted Martha and me for 43 years. My cell phone sat charging on the counter. The screen showed missed calls, but I ignored it while I poured my coffee and added cream. Some conversations required proper preparation. Finally, I picked up the device. 56 missed calls, all from the same Hawaii number. The call log told the story better than any novel. 11:47 p.m. Hawaii time. Then 11:52. Then 12:03 a.m. Every 15 minutes through the night. 4:30 a.m. 5:15 a.m. Simon had been awake all night. Between the calls, text messages. I scrolled through them, watching panic escalate in real time. Dad, call me back. Urgent. Hotel says you canceled everything. Dad, this isn't funny, call now. Kids are crying. We have nowhere to go. Call me back. The timestamps painted a clear picture. The family had arrived at Grand Wailea around 3 p.m. Hawaii time yesterday, 6 p.m. California time. Just as I was hanging up with Co. They'd walked up to that beautiful resort desk, excited and tired from traveling, probably already planning their first sunset dinner, and discovered they had no rooms. I carried my coffee to the living room and settled into my favorite armchair by the window. Outside, my neighbor was walking his golden retriever, the same route they took every morning for 12 years. Normal Tuesday routine for everyone else. My phone buzzed with another incoming call, a Hawaii number. I let it ring. The voicemail notification appeared moments later. Played it. Dad, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but you need to fix this right now. We spent the night in the hotel lobby. Pearl hasn't stopped crying. The kids don't understand what's happening. This is cruel and unnecessary and completely unlike you. Call me back and fix this mess. Cruel and unnecessary. Interesting choice of words from someone who left his father stranded at an airport. The coffee tasted perfect. Brazilian blend, ground fresh yesterday morning. When I'd still believed in family vacations and children's laughter and 3 generations making memories together. I set the cup on the side table and picked up my phone, scrolling to Simon's Hawaii number. My finger hovered over the green call button. 6 weeks of planning. $20,000 transferred without question. 3 months of excited conversations about snorkeling and luau's and teaching Mia to body surf. All of it orchestrated to exclude me. Simon wanted to talk. Perfect. I had things to say too. I pressed the call button. Simon answered before the first ring finished. Dad, finally. What the heck is going on? The hotel says you canceled our entire reservation. His voice came through so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. In the background I could hear other voices. Fern saying something about complete disaster. One of the kids crying. Well, hello Simon. How's your vacation going? Don't play games with me. We have nowhere to stay. Do you understand what you've done? I reached for my notepad, the one Martha used to keep by the phone for messages. Some conversations needed documentation. Actually, I understand perfectly. Tell me, when you planned to leave me at the airport yesterday, where exactly did you expect me to spend my vacation? A pause. The background voices quieted. Dad, that was completely different. This is about innocent kids. Were there no innocent kids involved when you deliberately excluded me after taking my $20,000? That's not the same thing. I wrote down the time. 8:03 a.m. California, 5:03 a.m. Hawaii. Simon's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been awake all night in crisis mode. Help me understand the difference, son. The difference is we're stuck in a foreign place with no money, and kids who don't understand why their vacation got ruined. Interesting. Yesterday, you told me to just go home when I was stuck in a foreign airport. What changed? Fern's voice grew louder in the background. Simon, tell him about the credit cards. Credit cards. I made a note. Dad, we can't afford another hotel. Everything's booked solid anyway because of some convention. We put the entire trip on credit, expecting to pay it off with, well, expecting different circumstances. You mean expecting to pay it off with my money, while I sat home like a discarded piece of furniture? Stop being dramatic. This isn't about you anymore. It's about Pearl and the kids. It became about me the moment you took my money and excluded me from my own grandchildren's vacation. Simon's voice shifted, becoming harder. Fine. You want to play hardball? When I get back to California, you're going to regret this. You think you can manipulate this family with money? I wrote that down word for word. You're going to regret this. Simon, are you threatening me? I'm promising you that actions have consequences, old man. Old man. I noted that too. You're absolutely right about consequences. For instance, the consequence of betraying someone's trust is that they stop trusting you. This is ridiculous. You're punishing children because you got your feelings hurt. I'm teaching adults that stealing $20,000 and abandoning family members has repercussions. We didn't steal anything. You gave us that money for a family vacation, which by definition includes family. Silence except for Pearl's voice in the distance, something about never should have listened. And this is a disaster. Simon tried a different approach. Dad, look. Maybe we handled things badly yesterday, but right now we need to focus on fixing the situation. Can you call the hotel and... No. What do you mean, no? I mean the word no, Simon. It's what you should have heard yesterday when you suggested I just go home and miss my own grandchildren's vacation. This is insane. You're acting like some kind of... vindictive. I hung up. The living room felt perfectly quiet after Simon's shouting. Outside, a hummingbird hovered near Martha's old feeder, its wings a green blur against the morning light. I looked at my notepad. Threats, insults, financial admissions, zero accountability. My phone immediately started ringing again. Hawaii number. I turned it off and finished my coffee, watching the hummingbird navigate between flowers with purpose and precision. Some lessons couldn't be taught with words. I stared at my notepad where Simon's threats glared back at me in black ink. You're going to regret this, old man. The words looked even uglier written down than they'd sounded through the phone. Martha's reading chair sat empty by the window, afternoon light streaming across the floral cushions she'd chosen 30 years ago. I could almost see her there, hands folded in her lap, waiting for me to ask the right question. What would you do, Martha? But I already knew. Martha never let anyone push her around, not even when it cost her friendships or family comfort. She'd built a career in nursing by standing up to doctors who thought women belonged in the background. Sometimes kindness gets mistaken for weakness, she used to say. Don't let people confuse the two, Lee. I'd been kind to Simon his whole life, paid his college tuition when he struggled, co-signed his first apartment, covered his mortgage payments during 3 separate job changes, funded family vacations, school supplies, medical bills for Fern, college fund contributions, birthday gifts, Christmas bonuses disguised as loans that were never repaid. $47,000 last year alone. Kindness, all of it interpreted as weakness. My office felt different now, like sacred ground where important decisions get made. I opened the filing cabinet Martha had organized so perfectly, every folder labeled in her careful handwriting. Financial family support contained the evidence of 20 years of generosity. Bank statements showing monthly transfers to Simon's mortgage. Receipts for Mia's violin lessons and Ethan's soccer equipment. Medical bills I'd quietly paid when Pearl needed her hip replacement. College fund contributions. Simon had no idea how much he was about to lose. I found Bruce Harlan's business card tucked behind Martha's emergency contact list. Harlan and Associates, estate planning and family law. We'd worked together when Martha died, handling her affairs with the kind of professional precision that made difficult times manageable. Bruce understood the weight of family obligations. He'd also understand when those obligations became exploitation. My investment portfolio sat in the bottom drawer, statements showing the careful accumulation of 43 years in engineering, real estate appreciation, retirement accounts, savings bonds, stock options from the tech companies I'd consulted for after official retirement. The afternoon sun slanted lower now, casting long shadows across my desk. Somewhere in Hawaii, my son was probably still trying to figure out alternative accommodations, still convinced this was temporary frustration he could manipulate away with the right combination of guilt and intimidation. He was about to learn the difference between temporary and permanent. I reached for the phone, Bruce's card steady in my other hand. The numbers felt significant as I dialed, like coordinates for a destination I'd been avoiding my whole life. Justice wasn't the same as revenge. Martha taught me that too. Revenge was emotional, messy, ultimately unsatisfying. Justice was clean, proportional, educational. Simon wanted to play hardball. Perfect. I'd spent 4 decades in corporate negotiations with men who thought engineering degrees made you soft. None of them made that mistake twice. The phone rang once. Twice. Bruce's receptionist answered with professional warmth. Harlan and Associates, this is Jennifer. How may I help you? Bruce Harlan's office. This is Lee Willis. I need to schedule an urgent consultation with Bruce about estate planning. The appointment was set for tomorrow afternoon. I slept better that night than I had since this whole mess started. Waking up refreshed and clear-headed for the drive to San Francisco. Bruce's office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower overlooking the bay. All polished marble and expensive wood paneling, the kind of space that charged by the hour and delivered results worth every penny. Lee, come in. Bruce stood to greet me, his handshake firm and reassuring. At 55, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd spent decades solving complicated problems. I settled into the leather chair across from his mahogany desk and spread out my documentation like evidence in a trial. Bank statements, receipts, threatening text messages, notes from yesterday's phone call. What's the situation? Bruce asked, reaching for a legal pad. My son has shown me who he really is. I need legal protection from his greed. The story came out methodically, chronologically. The planned vacation, Simon's deliberate exclusion at the airport, the hotel cancellation, the 56 desperate phone calls, and finally those ugly threats when he realized I wouldn't be manipulated. Bruce took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions that revealed his experience with family disputes. How long has this financial dependency been going on? 20 years minimum. I have documentation going back to his first mortgage. And the threats were specific? I wrote them down verbatim. I slid the notepad across his desk. You're going to regret this, old man. Actions have consequences. Bruce studied the notes, his expression growing more serious. Lee, this sounds like attempted financial coercion. In California, that's grounds for disinheritance with legal protection against challenges. Meaning if you choose to modify your will, We can structure it to withstand any attempt by Simon to contest it in court. The relief felt physical, like setting down a weight I'd been carrying without realizing it. I want him completely excluded, I said. Everything I've built goes to organizations that will actually use it for good. Bruce opened his computer and pulled up estate planning templates. Let me walk you through the options. We can establish a new will with charitable beneficiaries, including specific language about why Simon is excluded. For the next hour we discussed details. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation would receive the bulk of my estate. Engineering scholarships at UC Berkeley would get a substantial endowment. Local senior services, community development programs, veterans assistance. Causes that mattered, run by people who understood stewardship. The documentation you've provided shows a clear pattern of financial exploitation, Bruce said, reviewing my bank statements. Combined with the threatening language, it's solid grounds for disinheritance. How long will this take? I can have documents ready for signature by next week. We'll need witnesses, notarization, and I'd recommend a video recording of the signing to document your mental competency. Whatever it takes. Bruce leaned back in his chair, studying me with the careful attention of someone making sure his client understood the implications. Lee, this is permanent. Once executed, this will fundamentally change your family relationships. They changed first, I said. I'm just making it official. And you're certain about this? No second thoughts about the grandchildren. I thought about Mia and Ethan, their innocent faces during family dinners I'd funded, birthday parties I'd made possible. The children will be better served by scholarship programs than by inheriting money their father would control. Bruce nodded, apparently satisfied. Then let's proceed. I'll draft comprehensive documents excluding Simon entirely, while protecting your wishes from legal challenge. We shook hands as the meeting concluded, his grip conveying both professional competence and personal understanding. I'll call you when everything's ready for signature. Walking back through the marble lobby, I felt lighter than I had in years. The law was on my side. Justice would be served, and Simon would finally learn that actions really do have consequences. The elevator descended 15 floors while I processed what had just happened in Bruce's office. Legal protection was coming. Real, permanent consequences for Simon's betrayal and threats. That week passed peacefully, filled with the kind of routine I'd neglected during months of vacation planning. Morning walks around my Oakland neighborhood. Afternoon reading in Martha's chair. Evening meals prepared without rushing to accommodate family phone calls or visits. No more checking my phone constantly for updates from Simon about travel arrangements. No more wondering if Pearl would like the restaurant reservations I'd made, or whether Saul needed different activities for his arthritis. Just quiet, ordered days while Bruce prepared the legal documents that would change everything. Friday afternoon my phone rang. Bruce's office. Lee, the documents are ready. Can you come in Monday for the signing? Absolutely. Just to confirm, you're still committed to these changes? More than ever. Monday morning found me back in Bruce's downtown office, but this time the conference room held additional people. His secretary, Mrs. Chan, and a paralegal named David sat at the polished table with notary stamps and official forms arranged like surgical instruments. This is a formal will execution, Bruce explained, settling into his chair. Everything needs to be witnessed and notarized to prevent future challenges. The new will lay open before me. 23 pages of legal language that translated my anger into permanent consequences. Page after page detailed the exclusion of Simon Willis from any inheritance, the establishment of charitable trusts, the designation of Bruce as executor with full authority to distribute assets according to my wishes. Let me read the key provisions aloud, Bruce said, his voice carrying the gravity of legal ceremony. The testator, Lee Willis, being of sound mind and clear judgment, hereby excludes his son Simon Willis from all inheritance due to demonstrated financial exploitation and threatening behavior toward the testator. The words felt powerful. Final. Furthermore, the testator designates the following charitable organizations as primary beneficiaries. Bruce continued through the list we'd carefully constructed. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation would receive $400,000. UC Berkeley's Engineering Scholarship Fund would get $300,000. Senior Services, Veterans Assistance, Community Development. Worthy causes. Run by grateful people instead of entitled family members. Mrs. Chan adjusted her glasses. Mr. Willis, do you understand these provisions completely? Yes. And you're executing this will freely without coercion? Completely freely. David activated a video camera positioned on a tripod. For the record, please state your name and today's date. Lee Willis, May 25, 2025. And you're executing this will of your own free choice? I am. My signature felt steady on the official documents, each letter deliberate and final. Mrs. Chan and David signed as witnesses, their presence ensuring no future court could question the validity of my decisions. The notary seal pressed into the paper with satisfying authority, making everything official under California law. The original will remains in our security vault, Bruce said, handing me sealed copies. These are your personal records. I recommend keeping one copy accessible and another in a safety deposit box. When do you think they'll find out? That depends on when you choose to tell them. I tucked the envelope under my arm, feeling its weight like armor against future manipulation. Their flight returns Thursday afternoon. They'll probably want to have some kind of family meeting about what happened. Bruce nodded knowingly. Family meetings after a crisis tend to reveal everyone's true priorities. Outside his office building, San Francisco bustled with its usual energy. Business people hurrying, tourists consulting maps, street performers entertaining crowds. Normal life continuing while my personal world shifted on its axis. The drive home took me across the Bay Bridge. Martha's favorite view of the city skyline spread out like a postcard. She would have approved of today's work. Clean, legal, proportional justice. Simon had made his choice at the airport when he decided I was disposable. Now he would live with the consequences. 2 weeks had passed since Bruce sealed the final documents in his vault. During that time I'd maintained my peaceful routine, while mentally rehearsing this moment. Bruce and I had confirmed the flight details, discussed timing, and prepared for what was coming. Now, standing beside him in the international arrivals terminal at SFO, I felt the same calm confidence that had carried me through every major decision of my engineering career. Flight 441 from Honolulu has landed, Bruce said quietly, checking his phone. They'll be coming through customs shortly. The leather portfolio under his arm contained the documents that would complete our mission. 3 weeks of planning, legal preparation, and psychological readiness, all leading to this moment. Passengers began trickling through the sliding doors marked "Nothing to Declare." Tanned families with flower leis draped around their necks. Couples carrying duty-free shopping bags. Business travelers checking their phones. The usual flip with people returning from paradise. Then I saw them. Pearl appeared first, chattering animatedly to Saul about something she'd seen on the plane. Her oversized hat still bore a Hawaiian Airlines baggage tag, and she carried a shopping bag with Maui printed across the front. Saul followed quietly, wheeling 2 large suitcases, his face showing the patient exhaustion of someone who'd listened to travel stories for 6 hours straight. Behind them came Fern and the children. Mia wore a grass skirt over her shorts and clutched a plastic ukulele, while Ethan had a lei made of fake flowers around his neck. Both kids looked tired but excited, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Simon emerged last, checking his phone with the distracted air of someone trying to reconnect with mainland life. His Hawaiian shirt hung loose over khaki shorts, and he moved with the relaxed swagger of a man who thought his problems were behind him. Then Mia spotted me. "Grandpa!" She broke away from the group and ran toward me, her plastic ukulele bouncing against her side. Ethan followed, his face lighting up with genuine joy. "Grandpa Lee, we missed you so much. Wait until you hear about the dolphins." I knelt down to hug them both, feeling their small arms wrap around my neck with the uncomplicated love that only grandchildren can offer. For a moment, the weight of what was about to happen pressed against my chest. But then I looked up and saw Simon's face. He'd stopped walking entirely, his relaxed vacation demeanor evaporating as he processed the unexpected welcoming committee. His eyes moved from me to Bruce, taking in my lawyer's professional attire and the portfolio tucked under his arm. "Dad." Simon's voice carried a note of weariness. "What are you doing here?" "Welcoming you home," I said, standing up and gently positioning the children beside me. "How was your vacation?" Fern appeared at Simon's elbow, her expression shifting from confusion to something approaching alarm as she noticed Bruce. Pearl, oblivious to the tension, blurted, "We went to, and the resort had this amazing breakfast buffet." "And, Pearl," Saul said quietly, his accountant's instincts picking up on undercurrents she'd missed, "maybe we should." Bruce stepped forward, his movement precise and professional. "Mr. Simon Willis." His voice carried the formal tone of official business. Simon's face went pale beneath his vacation tan. Bruce extended the sealed manila envelope toward Simon with the formal gravity of a court officer serving papers. "Mr. Simon Willis, this is a copy of your father's revised last will and testament, executed on May 25, 2025. Simon's hands trembled as he accepted the envelope. The airport noise, announcements, luggage wheels, conversations, seemed to fade into background static as everyone's attention focused on the legal document. "What is this?" Fern whispered, reading the return address. Simon broke the seal with jerky movements, his vacation relaxation completely evaporated. He unfolded the papers and began scanning the contents, his eyes moving rapidly across the legal text. I watched his face transform as comprehension dawned. First confusion, then disbelief, then something approaching horror as he reached the crucial passages about disinheritance. "This can't be real," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Fern leaned over his shoulder, reading the same devastating words, her face drained of all color as she processed the implications. "Lee," she said, trying to maintain a reasonable tone. "Surely we can work this out. Think about the children. They're your grandchildren." "I did think about them," I replied calmly. "That's why I paid $20,000 for their Hawaiian vacation." Simon's head snapped up from the documents, his eyes blazing with the kind of desperate fury that comes from watching a life plan collapse in real time. "You can't do this to us. I'm your son." "Yes," I said. "The son who left me stranded at an airport and threatened me when I finally stood up for myself." Pearl, finally grasping that something serious was happening, stopped her chatter mid-sentence. "Lee, what's going on? Why does everyone look so upset?" Saul took her arm gently. "Pearl, maybe we should give them some privacy." But Simon wasn't interested in privacy. "This is impossible. You can't disinherit family. There are laws." Bruce spoke with professional calm. "Actually, Mr. Willis, California probate law fully supports your father's right to distribute his estate as he sees fit. The documentation is legally ironclad. I'll contest it in court." Simon's voice rose enough to attract glances from other travelers. "This won't stand." "Please do," I said. "Bruce has prepared for that possibility. The video recording of my competency evaluation should be particularly compelling to any judge." Fern was still scanning the legal documents, her practical mind calculating losses. "The house, the investments, everything." "Everything," Bruce confirmed. "The Oakland Children's Education Foundation and UC Berkeley Engineering Scholarship Fund are now the primary beneficiaries." Simon crumpled the papers in his fist, then immediately smoothed them out again, as if that might change their contents. "This is insane. You're throwing away your family over one stupid argument." "One stupid argument." My voice remained level, but I felt Martha's spirit strengthening my resolve. "Simon, you took $20,000 from me, excluded me from my own grandchildren's vacation, and threatened me when I objected. That's not an argument. That's betrayal." Mia tugged at my jacket. "Grandpa, why is Daddy yelling?" I looked down at her concerned face and felt a pang of genuine sadness. These children would grow up wondering why their inheritance disappeared. Never understanding their father's greed had cost them their future. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that have big consequences," I told her gently. Simon's desperation reached a new pitch. "We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you were manipulated, that you're not thinking clearly." Bruce opened his own portfolio and handed Simon a business card. "I'd be happy to provide documentation of your father's complete mental competency to any attorney you hire. Fair warning, frivolous litigation can be expensive." The family stood clustered around their vacation luggage, the happy memories of Hawaiian beaches already overshadowed by this new reality. Pearl kept looking between faces, still not fully comprehending the magnitude of what had happened. Saul, however, understood completely. His accounting background had taught him to recognize when numbers added up to disaster. "Simon," he said quietly, "maybe you should have thought about consequences before you acted." Simon whirled on his father-in-law. "Don't lecture me. This affects all of us." "No," I said firmly. "This affects the people who betrayed my trust. Your children are innocent. That's why I've established scholarship funds that will help children like them for generations." Bruce closed his portfolio with finality. "Gentlemen, our business here is concluded." He turned toward the terminal exit, and I followed, leaving Simon's family to process their new reality amidst the cheerful chaos of returning travelers and vacation reunions. Behind us, I could hear Simon's voice calling after us, still trying to negotiate, still unable to accept that some consequences are permanent. The walk through SFO's corridors felt different than it had 3 days ago. Now, I walked beside my attorney as someone who'd reclaimed his dignity through principled action. Bruce and I said little during the elevator ride to the parking garage. The weight of completed justice needed no commentary. "That went exactly as planned," Bruce finally said as we reached his car. "Better," I replied. Simon revealed his true character perfectly. No judge would overturn a will after hearing those threats. The drive home took us across the Bay Bridge as evening settled over San Francisco. The city lights reflected off the water in patterns that Martha had always loved, and I felt her presence approving of the day's work. "You know they'll try to contest it," Bruce said as we navigated through Oakland traffic. "Let them. Every lawyer they hire will tell them the same thing you told me. The documentation is ironclad." Bruce pulled into my driveway as the automatic porch light flickered on. The house looked exactly as it had this morning, but everything felt transformed by the completion of justice. We shook hands beside his car. "Thank you, Bruce. You made this possible. You did the hard work, Lee. Standing up for yourself took real courage." After his taillights disappeared down the street, I unlocked my front door and stepped into the quiet sanctuary of my home. The familiar smell of furniture polish and the distant tick of Martha's grandmother clock welcomed me back. In the kitchen, I prepared a simple dinner: scrambled eggs, toast, a cup of tea. No need to accommodate anyone else's preferences or schedule. Just food I enjoyed, eaten at my own pace. The evening light slanted through the dining room windows as I ate, illuminating the family photos that lined the mantelpiece. Simon's graduation from college, his wedding to Fern, pictures of the grandchildren at various ages. They were still family, but now I could look at them without feeling the sting of betrayal. My favorite armchair beckoned from its position by the living room window. I settled into its familiar embrace with my tea, looking out at the garden Martha had planted and I'd maintained for the past 3 years. The last few weeks had transformed me from victim to advocate, from someone who accepted mistreatment to someone who demanded justice. Martha would have been proud of the man I'd become, or perhaps the man I'd remembered how to be. My phone sat on the side table, turned off since leaving the airport. No doubt Simon was trying to call, still believing he could negotiate his way out of consequences. But some lessons can only be learned, never taught. The charitable organizations would receive my call tomorrow. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation, UC Berkeley's Engineering School, the Senior Services Program, Worthy Causes, run by grateful people who understood stewardship. My money would fund violin lessons for children whose parents worked multiple jobs. It would pay for engineering textbooks for students who couldn't afford them. It would provide meals and companionship for seniors who'd been forgotten by their families. Real good in the world. Instead of funding more vacations I'd be excluded from. The sun set behind Oakland's hills, painting my living room in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere across the bay, Simon's family was probably still processing the magnitude of their changed circumstances. Pearl would be confused, Saul quietly calculating, Fern planning damage control, and Simon would be learning that actions really do have consequences. I finished my tea as darkness settled over the neighborhood. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Phone calls from family members, possibly legal papers from desperate attorneys, the logistics of updating bank accounts and investment portfolios. But tonight, I sat in my own chair in my own house, surrounded by the quiet dignity of a man who'd reclaimed his self-respect. Martha's wisdom had guided me through the darkest period of family betrayal to this moment of peaceful resolution. Justice served, lessons learned, future secured. It was enough. It was perfect. It was finally completely mine.